Breyers was once a luxury ice cream brand known for its rich, creamy texture. Premium was part of its identity. Imagine opening a pint of ice cream only to be greeted by that thick, velvety swirl of cream, the perfect balance of vanilla beans and that satisfying richness that made every spoonful a moment to savor. For decades, Breyers was the gold standard, and it wasn't just ice cream. It was an experience, one that symbolized indulgence. The secret? A commitment to simple, natural ingredients, real cream, sugar, eggs, and vanilla. In a world of artificial flavors and processed desserts, Breyers stood apart, a beacon of quality. But that luxury wasn't just a marketing gimmick. It was the foundation of their brand. Every bite felt like you were getting the best of the best, something rare, something special. It's the kind of product that you'd buy for a special occasion, for a treat, for something to make your weekend feel just a little bit more indulgent. But what happens when a premium brand begins cutting corners? The shift began in the 2010s. A subtle change many fans wouldn't notice until it was too late. It wasn't an abrupt change. No big press releases, no bold new claims. It was gradual, almost imperceptible. And that's the thing with shifts like these. They happen quietly in the background until you're left wondering where things went wrong. Breyers, a brand that had once built its reputation on rich, creamy textures and simple, wholesome ingredients, began swapping out real cream and milk for cheaper substitutes. Vegetable oils, corn syrup, and other fillers started sneaking their way into the formula. All the while, the branding stayed the same. Those familiar green and white labels, the elegant cursive that promised quality. The promise of indulgence didn't change, but the product, it was beginning to taste different. How did this corporate decision affect the ice cream we grew up loving? Breyers could have stayed with its original recipe, but the pursuit of cost savings was just too tempting. It's a story as old as business itself, a company that once championed quality, now facing the harsh realities of a changing market. The pressure to cut costs and compete in a crowded space was building. So Breyers joined the industry-wide trend of sacrificing premium ingredients in favor of cheaper, more cost-effective alternatives. But those shortcuts didn't just affect the bottom line. They changed the experience too. Gone was the decadent creaminess. Instead, the texture became off. The vanilla flavor wasn't as rich in that signature smoothness. It felt a bit more synthetic. The transformation was subtle enough that you might not have noticed the first time, but with every scoop, something felt different. The indulgence of the past had been replaced with something that seemed more industrial. Was this really an inevitable decision for a company under pressure, or was something lost in the process? Imagine a childhood memory, like a family ice cream sundae, suddenly feeling wrong. The first time you scoop into a pint of Breyers after years of nostalgia, there's that moment. You expect the familiar weight, the rich texture that once made every bite feel like a small indulgence. But something's off. It's thinner. It doesn't have the same creamy texture you remember. It's like an old friend, someone you once trusted showing up with a stranger's face. For longtime fans, this wasn't just a flavor change. It was a betrayal. That thing they loved, the brand they'd chosen for special moments, no longer felt like a treat. It felt hollow. You wonder how something so simple, an ice cream recipe, could leave such a deep sense of loss. You're not just tasting a different ice cream, you're tasting the shift in priorities, the erosion of quality. Could this simple shift represent a larger, more painful reality about consumerism? Was it just nostalgia clouding our judgment, or had Breyers genuinely lost something special? We've all been there. biting into something that once held a sacred place in our lives and realizing it's not the same. But how much of this disappointment is the passing of time? And how much is a genuine change in the product? The question becomes personal. Was Breyers truly the luxurious, rich treat we remember, or had we simply idealized it in our minds over the years? Some consumers began to wonder, was it always this thin? Was it always this bland? And the more they questioned, the more unsettling the answer became. Because maybe it wasn't just the ice cream, maybe it was something deeper, something that went beyond taste. Maybe the real heartbreak lies in the fact that some things can't be saved, even by nostalgia. Breyers' ingredient list grew. Some flavors now contain over 20 ingredients, including stabilizers and artificial flavors. It wasn't just about the texture or taste anymore. It was about what was no longer there. What had vanished from the list entirely. The ingredient list Breyers once prided itself on, simple, natural, and recognizable, now reads like a science experiment. Over 30 ingredients, preservatives, stabilizers, artificial flavors, emulsifiers. The shift from pure cream and vanilla to this synthetic mashup wasn't just a tweak. It was a reinvention of the product. It was part of a bigger trend, one we see everywhere in the food industry. Mass production, cheap shortcuts, convenience at the expense of quality. What was once a symbol of luxury was now another frozen dessert on a crowded shelf. Can a brand stay true to its roots when the focus is on cost efficiency rather than authenticity? At what point does a brand's identity become expendable in the name of profit? Breyers didn't just lose its old recipe, it lost its soul. The more the ice cream market expanded, the more the competition ramped up. Brands were battling not just for customers, but for efficiency. Lowering production costs became a necessity for survival. So Breyers made the decision that would reshape its identity forever. It transitioned from premium to frozen dessert. The real cost of that shift, it wasn't just financial. It was the erosion of what made the brand feel special. At first glance, it seems like the company was just adapting to the market. But when you look deeper, the question arises, can we blame the company for doing what it thought was necessary to survive? Or is the real issue a broken system, one where authenticity is sacrificed in favor of speed, convenience, and bottom-line profits? Behind Breyers' recipe changes, there are powerful forces at play, corporate decisions influenced by market pressures, and Unilever's priorities. At the heart of this transformation is Unilever, Breyers' corporate parent. As a global giant, Unilever's priorities aren't rooted in indulgence or tradition. They're about numbers, efficiency, profit. Unilever pushed for a more standardized mass market approach, products that could be produced at scale, sold at scale, and consumed at scale. Quality became secondary to cost cutting. The focus shifted from what made Breyers special to what made it cheap and accessible. But does this corporate agenda explain everything, or does it point to something more complex, something deeper within the system? The shift wasn't just about cost. Breyers added cheaper, more synthetic alternatives, like artificial vanilla, alongside traditional ingredients. There was one change that many fans felt in their bones. The pure, comforting flavor of vanilla, real vanilla, was replaced. The rich, natural taste they loved was swapped out for synthetic vanilla, cheaper and less complex. It wasn't just a flavor change, it was an identity shift. You could almost taste the difference, that fake note, the lingering aftertaste of something manufactured. And for many, that was the moment Breyers crossed the line, the moment they went from a premium, indulgent treat to just another mass-produced product on the shelf. Fans weren't just tasting a different product, they were tasting a betrayal. Is this just a business decision or a betrayal of the brand's soul? It wasn't just the recipe that changed. Breyers fans started to fight back one pint at a time. The outrage didn't stay silent for long. Fans who had grown up with Breyers began to take to social media, voicing their frustrations, comparing the new formula to the ice cream they'd cherished for decades. It wasn't just the texture or the flavor. It was the loss of something intangible, a sense of comfort, of trust. Breyers wasn't just a brand, it was a part of their memories. As the complaints grew louder, so did the sense of betrayal. They wanted the old Breyers back, the one that made them feel like they were getting something special. But could a brand ever win back the trust of its most loyal customers? It's a strange paradox. To stay profitable, Breyers sacrificed what made it special, but without its authenticity, can it even survive in the long run? Breyers was pulling in more money, no doubt. The mass market approach was working, but something was off. The brand had lost its luster, its magic. Customers who once saw Breyers as a treat, something to look forward to, were now looking elsewhere. Profits were up, but so was the loss of its identity. Breyers had entered a dangerous game. The pursuit of profit had pushed it so far from its roots that it was unclear if it could ever return. What happens when profit erases the very qualities that made a brand iconic? Once labeled premium, some Breyers products are now classified as frozen desserts, a term that suggests a more mass-produced, less authentic product. In the eyes of the consumer, the brand had changed. Breyers no longer commanded that sense of indulgence, that luxurious quality. The new label? Frozen dessert. It wasn't just a rebranding, it was a stark admission. The product had been diluted, the status stripped away. What was once a premium indulgence was now just another budget-friendly treat, competing for the same space as all the other generic brands. The name might still say Breyers, but the experience had become one of many. How did we go from luxury to commodity so quickly? For years, we were loyal to a brand that promised something better, but loyalty doesn't guarantee quality in the corporate world. Many longtime fans held on to the hope that Breyers would return to its former glory. They kept buying, kept believing in the brand, despite the changes. But what they got in return wasn't a return to quality. It was an even more watered-down version of the ice cream they had once loved. Their loyalty had been met with indifference, with no attempt to win them back. That sting of betrayal, it was deep. What does this say about consumer loyalty in today's marketplace? What happens when companies stop listening to the people who made them great in the first place? Breyers had turned its back on the very customers who had helped build it. As profits grew, the company's priorities shifted. Costs were cut, corners were rounded, and the voice of the loyal customer was drowned out. The brand no longer felt like a partner in indulgence, but a corporation chasing profits at any cost. The disconnect between the corporate strategy and consumer desire had never been clearer. Is the death of authenticity an inevitable casualty of modern capitalism? Could it be that we've romanticized the past? That Breyers was never as perfect as we remember? Or was it genuinely different back then? We all have those memories, the ones that paint the past in the most golden light. For so many of us, Breyers was the epitome of luxury, a treat so good it almost felt too special to indulge in. But what if we've been looking at it through rose-colored glasses? Nostalgia has a way of distorting our memories, making the past seem flawless when, in reality, it was just better than what came after. Sure, Breyers' original formula was richer, creamier, but let's face it, those imperfections were always there too. The question is, was Breyers' decline inevitable from the start? Or is something more tragic at play, something we didn't see coming? Does this mean the brand's decline was inevitable, or is there something more tragic at play? When Breyers' recipe changed, it wasn't just the ice cream that suffered, it was the memories attached to it. It's hard to explain why, The loss of something as simple as ice cream can cut so deeply. But it's not just the texture or the flavor that's gone. It's the connection to the moments it represented. Those family gatherings, the late night indulgence, the happiness tied to every scoop. Breyers wasn't just a treat. It was part of our stories, part of who we are. The real cost wasn't measured in dollars or ingredients. It was measured in memories, in lost experiences. When that ice cream changed, so did something inside us. Is it possible to bring back what was lost? Or are these memories fading forever? In the race for profit, authenticity is often the first casualty. Breyers wasn't alone in its decision. It's the story of an entire industry. Breyers didn't act in a vacuum. What happened to them was part of a much larger trend sweeping through the food industry where profit margins trump authenticity. Companies cut corners, swap out ingredients, and churn out products designed for mass appeal, all while promising premium experiences. It's the classic tension, quality versus cost. In the end, cost wins, and it's happening everywhere. Breyers didn't just sacrifice a recipe, they sacrificed trust, because when profit becomes the goal, authenticity is bound to fall by the wayside. Can we really expect companies to maintain authenticity when profits come first? What's happening to ice cream brands is part of a bigger trend. Mass production is swallowing the artistry. Ice cream used to be an art form, carefully crafted, churned to perfection. But now, it's just another mass-produced commodity. Breyers, once the epitome of creamy indulgence, now finds itself competing with a flood of cheap plastic versions that all taste eerily similar. The richness, the texture, the genuine care that went into every scoop, gone. This isn't just about Breyers, it's about a culture shift where quality takes a back seat to efficiency. The artistry of ice cream is being erased, replaced by convenience and cost. Are we losing something more fundamental than just taste? The loss of quality in Breyers ice cream isn't just about taste. It's about what it symbolizes. It's easy to dismiss the change in Breyers as just a taste difference, but it runs much deeper. When that original formula was altered, the brand's identity was stripped away too. What Breyers used to represent wasn't just premium ingredients. It was a commitment to quality, to craftsmanship. That integrity, that sense of pride in the product, is what made it stand out. But when you swap out quality for cheap alternatives, you're not just altering the ice cream, you're losing the essence of the company itself. And once you lose that, can you ever get it back? Can a company ever get its soul back after losing it? Is Breyers' story just a cautionary tale about corporate greed, or should it serve as a broader lesson for consumers and companies alike? What happened to Breyers is a warning. It's the story of a company that lost its way in the pursuit of profit, but it's more than just a single brand's downfall. It's a reflection of a larger issue. In a world where convenience and cost-cutting are king, can any brand stay true to its roots? Can they continue to offer authenticity when everything is driven by the bottom line? It's a question we all need to ask because as consumers, we're the ones who bear the consequences. What happens when the brands we love no longer love us back? It's easy to blame Breyers for the changes, but in a way they're a reflection of something much larger, an industry prioritizing profit over the quality we once cherished. So here's a question for you. Do you think companies can still be genuine and profitable, or has that ship sailed? Let me know your thoughts below. And if you want to dive even deeper into the stories that shaped our childhoods, check out my previous video on the rise and fall of POGs. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. See you there.